Now to the double murder in Wilson County. We're learning the suspect is charged with killing his own brother and his mother. Police identifying the victims as 50-year-old Dana Jenkins and her 15-year-old son, Da'ron Cox. Jenkins' 25-year-old son, Da'ron Jenkins, is now charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder. The victims were found inside a home yesterday evening on Snowden Drive.
He hated them, and 6 days was all it took. That's the number that started this story. 6 days between a mother's prayer answered and her last breath.
Amelia Carnegie lives next door to her cousin Dana Jenkins.
She was a very sweet person. Always smiled. I can see her smile right now. She always smiled.
Carnegie says that in the days leading up to the murders, she felt something was off with Da'ron.
It told you everything. But I had no idea that you was getting ready to do what you did.
Breath. When this case first broke out, we saw through the crime, the arrest, the shock that swept through Wilson, North Carolina, like a cold wind nobody saw coming. Since then, unanswered hypotheses, asking questions, sharing theories, tellings about people in our own lives who reminded us of Dana and her son. And every single message came back to the same thing. What really happened in that house? And why? Investigators still haven't revealed, but the case has moved and details have surfaced. And the picture forming around this story is darker and more complicated than we first understood. Stay with me. For anyone joining us for the first time, welcome to Echoes of Alibi. Here is what you need to know. On March 25, 2025, Da'ron Jenkins, a 25-year-old, walked out of a North Carolina correctional facility after serving just over 3 years. Larceny of firearms, breaking and entering, malicious conduct by a prisoner. That was his record. That same afternoon, his mother, Dana Vanessa Jenkins, 50 years old, posted 8 words on Facebook that have haunted this case ever since. My baby is home. Lord, I thank you. She typed it on all caps with exclamation points because that is how big the feeling was. 3 years of praying, of visiting, of writing letters, of holding on, and finally, her son was home. 6 days later, at 5:23 in the evening on Monday, March 31st, 2025, a call came into Wilson County Emergency Dispatch. The voice was unclear, confused. All the dispatcher could determine was that something was terribly and deeply wrong. Officers arrived to find the porch light on, Dana's car in the driveway, no sign of forced entry, just silence. Inside, they found Dana Jenkins and her 15-year-old son, Da'ron Cox, both dead. Here is what is shocking about this case. Inside, they found Dana Jenkins, the 15-year-old son, dead. Da'ron Jenkins, the 25-year-old son, was still at the scene. Calm, no struggle, no emotion, just silence. He was charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, held without bond. That was where the story was left on few months ago. And now, here is what is striking about this case as it stands today. Weeks after the murder, a suspect is in custody, charges filed, and yet Wilson police have still not publicly revealed the exact cause of death. They have not confirmed the method. They have not stated the motive. The official line remains one sentence. The investigation is ongoing. In most cases, that sentence is standard legal practice. You protect what you know. You control what goes public before trial. That makes sense. But in a case this visible, a mother and her teenage son killed in their own home by the son she had just brought back from prison. That silence feels deliberate, purposeful, like investigators are guarding something specific, something they don't want the defense to see coming. And that, right there, is the thread we are pulling today. Let's talk about what we do know, because Da'ron Jenkins' record before March 31st is not just a background detail, it is a pattern. And patterns, in cases like this, are everything. He was denied parole not once, twice. The reason? Documented violent behavior behind bars, fighting, threatening staff, what the correction system formally calls malicious conduct by a prisoner. He did not earn his release. He served his time on paper, reached his mandatory out date, and the door opened automatically. No review board confidence, no counselor sign-offs. The system didn't release him because he was ready. It released him because it had to. And the moment he stepped through Dana's front door, the people around her started feeling it. That low, unnameable dread. His cousin, Wanila Konge, who lived right next door, said, "Listen to the weight of this. I dreaded this day would come. You could see it in him. He was so fidgety."
Now she is left shocked and hurt after learning Jenkins was found dead in her Wilson home alongside her 15-year-old son. The suspect in these horrific murders, Jenkins's older son.
I would have never thought that. I would have never thought he would do something like that. Not like this.
Another family member described him pacing at odd hours, staring out windows, going blank mid-sentence, standing perfectly still in the hallway outside a bedroom in the middle of the night, just watching. Multiple people felt it in their guts, in their chest, in that quiet animal instinct that tells you something is wrong, even when you can't explain why. But nobody spoke up because Dana was so happy. And nobody wanted to be the one to take that from her. And that silence, the silence born of love, of loyalty, of not wanting to hurt the woman who had waited 3 years for this moment. That silence became the crack in the wall that everything fell through. I want to be transparent with you. What follows is analysis drawn from publicly available records and reportings. These are not confirmed facts. These are the questions the evidence is raising, and they are questions this case will eventually have to answer in a courtroom. Theory 1. A financial motive. According to information that emerged in reporting following the arrest, Da'ron Jenkins held a life insurance policy through her employer. The listed beneficiary was Da'ron. Now, prosecutors have not confirmed this publicly and want to be precise about that. But if accurate, the implication is devastating. Did Da'ron Jenkins look at the woman who had prayed for him, visited him, and tied balloons to her Porsche for his return, and see not his mother, but a payout? Did he calculate that if he could frame this as a robbery, stage confusion, create the appearance of a random act of violence, he could walk away clean? He didn't walk away. He was still at the scene when officers arrived. which either means the plan collapsed or there was never one in a way we can imagine, which leads us to the second theory. Theory 2 is psychological collapse. 3 years in prison changes a person, not always in the ways people assume, but when someone enters the system already carrying violence and exists with a trial of infractions and 2 parole denials, the change is rarely towards healing. There is a documented phenomenon, sometimes called institutionalization, where a person becomes so adapted to the structure, the aggression, and the survival instinct of incarceration that the outside world feels threatening, disorientating, even enraging. Warmth feels foreign, kindness feels like weakness, love feels like a trap. And then there is the question of Da'ron, 15 years old, honor roll, church volunteer, a boy every adult in his life describes as gentle, joyful, destined for something good. Did Da'ron look at his younger brother and see a mirror of his own failure? Did he look at the boy who had everything he had thrown away and feel rage? These are not comfortable questions, but they are the ones this trial will force this community to sit with. Theory 3. Was this planned before he even came home? The prosecution's early framing, based on statements made in court, appears to lean towards premeditation, not a moment of rage, not a snap decision, a plan, deliberate, calculated, executed. And if that is true, if Da'ron Jenkins had already decided what he was going to do before he stepped off prison grounds, then every moment of that homecoming was a performance. The hug at the door, the photos at the porch, the smile for the camera, all of it a performance. That possibility is almost too much to hold, but we hold it anyway because Dana and Da'ron deserve the truth wherever it leads. Wilson, North Carolina is not a big city. It is the kind of place where you grow up knowing your neighbors, where the woman at the end of your street goes to the same church as your grandmother, where a 15-year-old boy's empty desk at school on a Tuesday morning is felt by every single person in that building.
Charged with killing his mother and younger brother after they were found dead in their Wilson County home on Monday.
Today, a family member who lives right next door is talking with WITN.
Yeah, Da'ron Jenkins is facing 2 counts of first-degree murder after police say he killed his mother and younger brother. They were found dead here in this home behind me. Now, the cousin of the mother is speaking to us, trying to figure out how this could have happened.
When news of the murders broke on the evening of March 31st, Wilson didn't receive it the way you receive news from far away. It landed like a stone dropped in still water, and the ripples went everywhere. Word spread the way it only can in a small town, fast and personal.
He was being remembered by Beddingfield High School and Mount Moriah Community Church in Wilson.
They loved each other. They loved us. We loved them, especially Da'ron. He meant the world to all of us. Our teens here, they're grieving heavily.
At Beddington High School, Da'ron Cox's teachers arrived the next morning, knowing that his desk would be empty. Not late, not absent. Empty in the permanent, terrible way that no one prepares you for. Counselors were called in before the first bell. Some teachers couldn't get through their morning without stepping into the hallway to collect themselves. Students who had eaten lunch with Da'ron just days before were now sitting in circles, trying to make sense of something that made no sense at all. One classmate later wrote online, "You are the kind of person who made everyone around you feel like they matter. I don't know how to do this without you here." At Mount Moriah Community Church, where both Dana and Da'ron had worshipped, served, and belonged, Bishop Sherman Blandon opened the doors the very next evening for an emergency prayer service. He didn't wait for Sunday because Wilson couldn't wait. The sanctuary filled within minutes. People came in number. Some arrived still in their work clothes, having driven straight from jobs the moment they heard. They came looking for answers and found mostly each other. Bishop Blandon stood before his congregation and said the words that no man of faith ever wants to have to say. He said, even as a man of faith, his voice breaking, "I have questions." Some wept openly, others sat in the kind of stunned silence that comes after a scream that has already finished. Many of them had seen Dana just days before, smiling, joyful, posting about her son coming home, and now they were staring at her photograph on a memorial table. The church youth group gathered in a separate session for Da'ron. These were the same teenagers who had sat beside him in the media booth, who had laughed with him backstage at youth events, who had watched him set up cameras and microphones before Sunday service with a quiet focus that made you think, that boy is going somewhere. They were now sitting in a circle, trying to understand why someone so good could be taken in a way so violent. Wanila Conger, Dana's cousin, the woman who had lived right next door for years, told reporters she had spoken to Dana the Sunday night before the murders.
Look, it told you everything. But I had no idea that you was getting ready to do what you did.
Just a regular conversation. Nothing dramatic. Nothing final sounding. Just two cousins catching up on the way you do when you share a fence line and a history.
And then the next morning, police tape appeared around the building next door. And someone had to come and tell Joanila that the voice she had heard the night before, that warm, ordinary voice, was the last time she would ever hear it. She told us, "I couldn't figure out why he did it. And what for?" That question, what for, doesn't just live with Joanila. It lives with an entire town. Online, the grief poured in the way it does in this age, through screens, through comments, through strangers who never met Dana or Da'ron but felt moved to say something. Instagram filled with candle emojis and scripture. Facebook posts with photos, with memories, with the kind of raw, unedited love that people only write when they are truly broken. One post read, "She loved that boy more than life itself. Now they are gone together." Another simply, "You deserve the world, Da'ron. I hope heaven is brighter with you in it." On April 12th, 12 days after the murders, Dana Jenkins and Da'ron Cox were laid to rest. The funeral was held at LM Forbes OFWB Tabernacle. The pews were full. Not just with family and close friends, but with strangers. People who had heard the story and simply could not stay away. Because some grief is too big to be held only by the people who knew you. Pastor Damon Royal delivered a eulogy that chose, deliberately and with great care, to focus on the love they had lived, not the horror of how they died. Because the love was real. The love was documented. The love was written in every person sitting in that pew, in every candle lit on every porch that week in Wilson, in every post, every prayer, every hand placed on a grieving shoulder. The following day, Dana and Da'ron were buried side by side at Rest Haven Cemetery. Side by side. As they had always been. And as the final prayer was spoken and the flowers were laid and the people of Wilson began the long, quiet walk back to their cars, the question that had been whispering through this whole community since March 31st grew louder. Not just how. Not just who. But why? And what do we do now that we know it can happen here?
Here is a conversation that demands that we have, and I'm about to tell you openly and plainly. Da'ron Jenkins' record was not hidden. It was not sealed or classified or buried in a file no one could access. Two parole denials, documented violence against prison staff, a history of weapons charges, all of it was on a paper, in a system accessible to people responsible for making the decision to release him. And when that release date came, what was offered to Dana Jenkins
What supervision was assigned? What mental health evaluation was mandated? What warning was given to the family about to take this man into their home? Nothing. As far as the public record shows, nothing.
Across America, families are doing exactly what Dana did. Cleaning rooms. Cooking meals. Typing, "My baby is home," in all caps because that is how love works. And in many cases, it is enough. Reunion is possible. Rehabilitation is real. People do come back. But when a system releases someone with Da'ron's documented profile, violent, unrehabilitated, with no post-release plan, into a family home without a single safeguard, it is not giving that family a second chance. It is leaving them exposed. And the cruelest part, they don't know it. Da'ron Jenkins did not fail her son. She loved him in the fullest, most complete way a person can love someone who has given them every reason to stop. That is not weakness. That is the particular, devastating kind of courage that mothers carry. The failure belongs elsewhere. And until we say that loudly, and clearly, and without flinching, it will happen again. As of now, Da'ron Jenkins remains held at Wilson County Jail without bond. He faces 2 counts of first-degree murder in the deaths of Dana Vanessa Jenkins and Da'ron Cox. No trial date has been publicly announced. The investigation remains officially open. What we are waiting for, a trial date to be set. Official cause of death to be disclosed. A motive, if one is named publicly. And the full weight of what happened on Snowden Drive on March 31st to finally be laid out in a courtroom, under oath, in front of a jury. When that day comes, and it will come, Echoes of Alibi will be here. We will bring you every development, every detail, every moment that moves this case forward. Before we go, I want to come back to them one more time. Because in cases like this, it is easy to let the investigation swallow the people. Dana Vanessa Jenkins was 50 years old. She worked hard, stayed faithful, showed up for her community, and never stopped believing in the people she loved. Even past the point where most people would have given up. That is who she was. And that is who she remains, regardless of how her story ended. Da'ron Cox was 15. He ran the media team at his church. He made the honor roll. He made adults say, "That boy was raised right." He was. He was raised by a woman who gave him everything she had. And he deserved every year he was never given. They are gone. But they are not forgotten. I want to leave you with one question. And I genuinely want to hear what you think in the comments below, because this community, you, watching this, you are part of how these conversations move forward. If the motive in this case turns out to be financial, if Da'ron Jenkins calculated this before he ever came home, does that change how we think about responsibility? Is the blame his alone? Or does a system that released him without evaluation, without supervision, without so much as a warning to his family, carry a share of what happened on Snowden Drive? There is no clean answer. There never is. But asking the question matters. Dana and Da'ron deserved better. And the least we can do is make sure their story is part of the conversation that changes something. If you're new here, welcome to Echoes of Alibi. We are a true crime channel that goes beyond the headlines, into the people, the patterns, the grief, and the questions that don't have easy answers. If that is something that matters to you, hit subscribe and turn on your notifications. We post regularly, and there is always another story that deserves to be heard. From 6 days of hope to a lifetime of grief due to unjust hate for a mother and brother. May we never ignore the signs again.